Hi guys, my name is Tiffany Miranda with Girls Make Beats and Pro Media Training. I'm an avid certified engineer who's worked with everybody from Rick Ross to DJ Khaled, Fat Joe, Cool and Dre, and much more. And today we're going to talk about how to mix EDM vocals using a few of my favorite Waves plugins. I went ahead and opened a session, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of vocals here, a lot of overdubs and harmonies, which really helps when it comes to arranging EDM vocals. You want to have that full sound, so it's important to layer your leads with harmonies and whatnot. Now, it's important to keep everything organized, and in doing so, I've utilized color coding so that I can see the various groups that I have here between my leads, my hooks, and some of the other things I was doing vocally, like the background vocals as well. I also have these routed out to separate auxes. As you'll see here, these are routed to the BG, which is then in turn routed to the input here on this aux track of BG. I've done the same with the hook, as well as matched the color coding on that, and also on the lead here. So with that being said, it really gives you the opportunity to really manipulate these different groups in comparison to each other, which is important when you're mixing vocals. The leads, you always want them to be present and in your face, whereas the background, you can tend to put a little more reverb and delay effects and tuck them and not make them as bright, depending on what you're going for. Let's just go ahead and take a listen to what this vocal sounds like. I actually have this particular track routed out to 1 and 2, so we'll just take a listen to it. This sounds like before any processing.
Don't wanna be your friend tonight, tonight.
Okay, that is what it sounds like before adding the Waves SSL channel, which is actually one of my favorite Waves plugins. It's modeled after the SSL, and it has some great sounds here when it comes to EQ and dynamics. It really emulates the sound of the board if you've worked on an SSL channel before. What I tend to do, especially with my vocal, is I will boost around 5K just to give it some bright upper presence. And I find that with vocals, you kind of want to keep it between 3 to 6 dB to keep it sounding natural. You can obviously, you know, be creative with it as well, but if you're trying to go for a natural, just bright, present sound, and depending on the vocalist, it's a good idea to boost within this upper range. Also, when it comes to playing against some of the other instruments, you'll notice that, you know, sometimes it might sound a little muddy. So what you want to do with the vocal, you always want to keep it clear and precise. You want to cut out some of those muddy frequencies, which in this particular track with this particular vocal performance, I found some muddy areas and around the 500 area. So I cut a little bit of that out, as well as put a slight boost over 10K, which kind of gives it a little sparkle, a little brilliance. And I did some compression here. We did a compression ratio of about 4 to 1. I brought the threshold down, and I set the release to about 46 milliseconds there. Now let's take a listen to what it sounds like now. Just gonna go ahead and activate some reverb. This is a nice little hall reverb. Let's hear that again. And here you can control how much reverb you want being sent to the aux. So basically what you could do here is then activate the reverb, and let's hear what this sounds like. We're also going to activate a little small delay, short delay, as well as a long delay that will bring up slightly, and let's take a listen to what that sounds like.
Don't wanna be your friend tonight.
Okay, so just even with that small amount of processing, we have an interesting vocal. It captures the attention right from the jump, whereas before it was dull, it was a little muddy sounding, and we've taken that with this Waves plugin and made it sound very interesting. Now, as we progress throughout the song, let's just take a look at this lead vocal that I have here for the verse, and let's listen to what that sounds like without any processing. Okay, so basically what I'm hearing is that we have a good vocal performance, however, it's getting a little lost in the mix, and that happens again when there's other instruments that are present. They start to fight for attention in the frequencies. So I'm just going to go ahead and activate that SSL channel, which I've routed to the aux track here. And again, I've done some similar processing to what I did on that intro vocal. And let's take a listen to what that sounds like along with some reverb. We've also put a hall reverb on here, a short delay, and a long delay. And those are all routed in my auxes here. I'm just going to make this a little bigger for you guys so you can see it. All right, and let's take a look at the settings on the reverb that I'm using here. Here, this first one that I have labeled reverb is routed to a plate verb, which, as you can see here with the Waves plugins, we have plate 1. We've put a pre-delay of about 14 milliseconds. The time, delay time here is at 2.25 for the decay. And let's hear what that sounds like along with some just a tad bit of hall reverb that I've put on here. So let's take a listen to what that sounds like.
I'm so tired of all these games we play. You stole my heart and you made me feel this way.
Okay, now it's a lot brighter. We had some compression that is preventing that signal from going in and out of the mix, some EQ to clarify the frequencies that were maybe clashing with each other, a reverb to give it a nice spatial effect, as well as delays to compensate for space. I'm still hearing the vocal go in and out a little bit. I don't want to overly compress it and get too much of that compression color from that particular compressor. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add an RVOX to this lead and bring down this compression parameter down to about -9.2 and the output gain here to -3.1. Let's take a listen to what it sounds like now.
I'm so tired of all these games we play. You stole my heart and you made me feel this way. These feelings I can't keep inside of me, but you're the only one who can set them free.
Okay, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. The vocal, again, is present. It's interesting. It has a nice space to it, and it's not going in and out of the mix too much. Now, let's hear what the background vocals are doing without any processing. So I'm just going to go ahead and deactivate the background vocal processing here. Okay, as you can see, again, we are having that same issue with the background vocals where they're a little dull. It's where the SSL channel comes into play again. I have a lot of the same settings, but what I tend to do with background vocals specifically is raise the ratio, the compression ratio. Sometimes I'll go into 5, depending on the input of the vocal. We'll put the threshold down a little further than I would the lead, just so that it's not as in your face as the lead. You really want the lead to stand out. I also will tend to raise the hall verb considerably to really have it sit in the back. Let's take a look at what that sounds like activated. So you see the hall verb is up to -11.8 here. And this just gives it a nice, nice room feel, simulated room feel. I'll bring down the vocal as well, just a hair, and let's listen to that.
Don't wanna be your friend tonight, tonight, tonight.
All right, so these are all things to consider when you are doing vocal mixing. You want to make sure that your lead is up front, the backgrounds are in the background as they should be, but don't be afraid to try some interesting things when it comes to spatial effects. You can get really creative with your reverbs, the decay times, and the delays on that, as well as maybe add a little flanging to your delays, which is an interesting effect as well. So that's pretty much it for today's lesson. And there you have it. That's just a few tips on how I like to mix my EDM vocals. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and stay tuned for more with Girls Make Beats.